We've been seeing these incredible images of protests in more than 100 cities all over the country. A lot of those images have come from small towns and rural areas, predominantly white areas. These images in particular, these are from Kingston, New York. It's in New York's 19th congressional district. It's a district that is majority white. It's a district that Donald Trump won by nearly 7 points in 2016. But in 2018, the voters in that district elected freshman Democratic Congressman Antonio Delgado, who Republicans had attacked as being a, quote, big city rapper. Congressman Delgado was one of 8 black members elected that year to represent majority white districts in Congress. Just recently, he wrote an op-ed for the Washington Post with a headline, "I know how painful racism is, but we can't give up on voting." Quote, "I'm a black man representing a district that is nearly 90% white in one of the most rural parts of the country. My experience is proof that voting can bring about change that once might have seemed out of reach. In fact, it's crucial in changing the laws and policies that have caused so much agony." And Congressman Antonio Delgado joins me now. Congressman, I know you, I follow you on Instagram, so I know that you get around that district a lot. It's an enormous district. It's a whole bunch of counties. You cover a lot of ground. I know you talk with your constituents all the time. What have the conversations over these last 2 weeks as this sort of national reckoning and street movement has happened? What have those conversations been like?
Well, I think it's a combination. It's a combination of self-reflection, where people are trying to really do the work of internally investigating how they can improve and build upon the work that we see happening all across the country. As you noted, back in 2018, there was an onslaught of negative advertising grounded in degrading notions of black masculinity. And we rose above that, and we really leaned on love and led with compassion and empathy and mutuality. And I think, my district, which is a very politically diverse one, a third independent, a third Democrat, a third Republican, what we value more than anything is humanity, civility, decency. And we see things that are happening across the country now, people coming together, multicultural, multiracial. I think people feel hope and they want to feel moved and inspired by that. Also understanding, though, that we have a long, long road ahead of us.
Yeah, I wonder sometimes, policing looks so different in different parts of America. It looks so different in the corner in Minneapolis where George Floyd was killed than it does in a real rural county in the Catskills. Like what that conversation even is there, if people have an awareness of what their conception of policing is and what policing might mean for someone else.
Well, I think the concept of policing, while important, there's a deeper issue, and it's about equality,
right?
And how we treat each other and how we account for one another. And, policing fundamentally is about public safety and treating each other with a level of respect and serving the community and enabling the community to thrive. And so to the extent that any community, whether it's black, brown, yellow, they have to feel accounted for. They have to feel protected. They have to feel enabled. And so that, to me, is how you're able to cross this sort of urban-rural divide, if you will, because at the end of the day, it's about the humanity. It's about the heart, right? And I think to the extent that people cannot see that happening in other places or don't feel it at home, it is profoundly problematic. On a human level, it is problematic.
Your colleagues have introduced legislation around policing reform. There's probably going to be a similar bill moving through the Senate. Do you see this as an important issue for the Democratic caucus this year before the election?
Well, it's an incredibly important issue. Even before this bill, Justice in Policing Act, which was introduced this week, it came on the heels of one of the most multicultural, multiracial, cross-generational movements we've seen in decades. And so first, let's not overlook the fact that this is a powerful, powerful moment where the government is responding to the will of the people in this moment. And we cannot overstate that enough. We've got to be able to take this thing all the way to the finish line because it is an extension of the will of the people. And so for me, doing that work and making sure we can bring folks together across the political spectrum to make real, meaningful change, that's how you give people confidence in the system, that the system actually can reflect the will of the people.
President Trump won your district by 7 points. It was a district that had gone for President Obama. It swung fairly hard to Donald Trump. It had a Republican member of Congress who you defeated. What do things look like there? I mean, you've got a rural district. There's a lot of there's kind of different kind of folks doing different kinds of work. The pandemic has hit everyone. The lockdowns have hit everyone. What do things look like in terms of that right track, wrong track question for the people that you represent, largely a rural district, majority 90% white?
Well, my district, in many respects, has been hollowed out. We don't even have broadband access in much of the district. Here we are in 21st century, richest, most powerful, country in the world, and we have communities not living with broadband access. And we know how critical that is when you think about COVID-19, telemedicine. You're thinking about our students, needing to learn online, small businesses having to convert their operations, and yet we have communities here by the thousands that do not have broadband access. And it's because so much of how the government has been operating to date isn't about promoting general welfare, but enabling private capital. And so how do we strike the right balance to make sure that rural communities where you do not have densely populated areas and where private actors are not prone to invest because of the demand not being as high,
right?
Where does government step in and do that work? And I think for me, it's about being an advocate for this community, for our community, to make sure that we are on the front lines, being thought of and prioritized by the folks in Washington.
Are you hopeful about how people come through this? I know that there's it's interesting. I've heard snapshots from different places around the country, around the state, from New York City and other places about small businesses that have made it through, whether they got a PPP loan, people that were able to find workarounds and are in better shape than they thought. And then I've heard the reverse, that lots of people have been decimated. How optimistic are you as you look towards this summer and as you watch Wall Street go nuts about what the next 3, 4, 5 months look like for the folks that live in your district?
Well, for the 27,000 small business owners, including self-employed, the nearly 5,000 small family farms in my district, it's a tough road ahead. And it's been tough before COVID-19 because we are in desperate need of infrastructure. We are in desperate need of making sure we have workforce development. We are in desperate need of affordable housing. And all of these issues, all of these trends predate COVID-19. Right. And so for me, it's about making sure that we utilize this moment to propel ourselves, investing in ways that have a return on the investment, investing in our education system, investing in our roads, in our transportation. People need to be able to access opportunity here.
If there's not state aid coming from the federal government, that's going to be tough because New York's about to take an enormous whack to its budget.
That's why with the HEROES Act, I've partnered up on a bipartisan basis, the Direct Communities Act, to get direct aid to every state and local government, irrespective of population size. It's so important. Crucial. The CARES Act said only government units over 500,000 people. We don't have any unit like that in New York 19.
Congressman Antonio Delgado from upstate New York, thanks for making time tonight. That is all for this evening. The Rachel Maddow Show